In this video, we're going to explore genres, what they are, and how we know if a text belongs to a specific genre. So what do we mean by genre? We often talk about different genres of music. Some people prefer classical music, whereas others like jazz or rock music, and still others like country music. As soon as the song starts, you'll hear certain instruments, and the way the piece is composed, you'll get a sense for what genre you're listening to. The same is true of books. Depending on what we're reading, we have certain expectations as to how the text will unfold. If we're reading a picture book, we expect there to be a lot of pictures and not a lot of text. If we're reading a novel, we expect the characters to be developed and there to be a storyline, often with a complication and a resolution. But if we want to learn something, we might turn to a textbook, which will likely have images, but there'll be diagrams and tables rather than illustrations. And if we want to learn how to bake or cook something, we turn to a recipe book. In literacy and language education, we also have genres. Sometimes we teach spoken genres like service encounters, interviews, patient consultations, or even storytelling. We also commonly teach written genres. We might need to write a business report, or even a business presentation. We might need to take lecture notes or write up an essay for class. There are different approaches to describing or analyzing genres, such as the ESP approach, or rhetorical genre studies. In this video, we'll be drawing on systemic functional linguistics, a theory of language developed by Halliday in the 1970s that focuses on the meaning potential of a language within situated social and cultural contexts. So in SFL, Halliday argues that the notion of choice is fundamental. SFL views language as a social semiotic system. The focus is on our meaning-making choices. Language is viewed as a system of systems, and our job as linguists, or research practitioners, is to specify the choices involved in the process of instantiating this meaning potential in actual texts, through the resources available for expression in the given language. These choices that we're making are informed by situational contexts. Where do we find ourselves, and what situational and cultural contexts are we operating within? These include choices along the three metafunctions of language. So choices around the text field, the content of the message. Choices around tenor, the relationships being enacted between the speaker and the audience, or the writer and the reader. And thirdly, the mode, the organization of the text. Collectively, the choices along these three metafunctions construe the register of a given text, and they then operate within and are influenced by the context of culture, which Martin refers to as genre. Martin defines genre as a staged, goal-oriented, and purposeful social activity that people engage in as members of their culture. More simply, genres are defined as a staged, goal-oriented social process. So what does that mean? Let's break it down into parts. Genres are staged. That just means they unfold over a series of steps. In SFL, we call these stages. So for example, if you look at this text, we can see that the first two sentences preview the topic, orienting us to the issue that is about to be argued through this thesis. English should be declared as the official language of the United States. This is followed by an argument to support this thesis. These are the stages across which the text unfolds. Genres are created with a specific purpose or goal in mind. We use them to inform, persuade, sometimes just to entertain, but they have a purpose or goal in mind. We can also say that genres are not just some individual creation. They are social activities that people engage in as members of a culture or community. They reflect and shape our social interactions. So how do we know if we have a genre? We look for these three signs. Are participants within the text interacting, using language in a conventional, staged structure to achieve a common goal and serve a similar socio-cultural purpose? If so, Well then, we know that texts which have a similar social purpose and structure constitute a genre. Take for instance this text, asking us to experiment and see which solids dissolve in water. Here we see the text divided into two main parts, the materials and the method. Under the first section, we know that we need to gather some supplies, water, both hot and cold, some transparent glasses, and some substances like sand, sugar, coffee, and salt. Under the second section, methods, we are told exactly what we are meant to do. So we can see that our text is staged. It unfolds across a series of instructions. Gather these materials, follow these steps. So this is how scientific procedures unfold. What if we saw similar meanings structured in another context? For example, a recipe. Here we have a recipe to make apple pie. Notice that this recipe is also organized into two parts. Over here, we have the ingredients, very similar to the material stage we saw in our scientific procedure. Then, instead of a method section, we have our instructions, telling us, step by step, what we need to do. As linguists, we like to focus on the language that is used to achieve these stages. For example, what is the first word in each of these steps? Roll, line, preheat, mix, and spread. Notice how each of these steps puts the verb or process in theme position, straight up front. This structure forms the imperative, which makes sense because these are instructions for what must be done to achieve the purpose of these texts, their genre. So whether we are writing a scientific procedure or an apple pie recipe, if the texts are organized according to a standardized sequence of stages to achieve a similar goal, then we can say that the texts belong to the same genre. So in review, within the SFL theory of language, a genre is defined as a staged, goal-oriented social process. We're on the lookout for those key features. How is the text organized? What stages can we identify, and how do they unfold? If we're trying to figure out if two different texts belong to the same genre, we can ask, do they have a common goal? Are they functioning to achieve the same social purpose? Remember, texts which have a similar purpose and structure constitute a genre. They might be talking about completely different topics or ideas, things as diverse as dissolving solids in water and baking an apple pie. But if they function to achieve a similar purpose, like instructing someone how to do something, and they follow a similar structure or staging pattern, like a list of sequential steps and instructions, then we can confidently say they belong to the same genre. So that's how we recognize genres, and how we know if a text belongs to a specific genre, or if we need to classify it as something else. Hopefully this video helps you better understand how genres are defined and help you start to see those patterns of language that we look for when we are identifying and distinguishing genres.